The historic Concord Church by Mill Creek. Mill Creek's church can trace its roots to a land grant of 640 acres on the east side of Mill Creek in the late 1700s, given to James Minnies II of Virginia. He was one of the first Baptist settlers in the region. The historic Concord Church, a Civil War Army campsite. As the thriving 1850s came to a close, the prosperous agricultural community in the southern part of Nashville and Nolensville witnessed the beginnings of the American Civil War. The Battle of Stones River at Murfreesboro began as a surprise attack by the Union Army on December 31, 1862, and turned into one of the bloodiest battles, killing nearly 22,000 men. Well before the significant battle took place, the Union had to travel from Nashville to Murfreesboro. And where did they stop over? The historic Concord Church. Winter offensives were extremely rare due to the rainy season, which left the roads a mess and made it very difficult for the men to march through the mud with wagons dragging cannons. Armies tended to stay put for the winter, but much to the Confederate Army's surprise, the Union Army launched an attack that started on December 26 of 1862. Union Army General McCook made his camp at Concord Church, making it his headquarters and a hospital for the sick, serving approximately 8,000 men. It was a very important and strategic point for the troop movement progressing towards Murfreesboro. Before antebellum years, the area was a camp for Native Americans long before the 1860s. Local tribes probably settled temporarily here, leaving bowheads and pottery as evidence of their stay. The sanctuary made up the one original structure, and the congregation was composed of local residents who lived within a walking distance of the church. As the century rolled by and the community began to grow, the church added annexes for their different needs. Post-Civil War life demanded many new changes. A new need arose to teach orphans and poor children, which meant they needed more Sunday school spaces. Before convention centers and malls, community groups or associations needed large areas to meet, and churches had the perfect space for gatherings. In June 2005, El Shaddai Christian Church purchased the Concord Church building for a church plant of a non-denominational church with more than 16 countries represented. As this new church began its life and involvement in the community, it soon learned of its history and spiritual heritage. People would stop by and share their personal experiences of their spiritual journey at this church, including taking their wedding vows and raising their families there for 3 and even 4 generations. The founders of El Shaddai began collecting the historical facts and conducting research to determine if the church qualified as a historic site. In 2016, it obtained eligibility as a National Historic Site, both at the city and state level. With that in hand, the church is in the process of acquiring the permits to rehabilitate the building. The New Millennium. This historic 4-acre site is planning a beautiful makeover. Charming as always, the historic Concord Church has plans for another wonderful 200 years. Plans include a walking trail with the possibility of connecting the Nashville Greenway to the Brentwood Greenway, community gardens, memorial and healing gardens, an arboretum, and a geriatric playground. The Fellowship Hall will once again be a community center for educational conferences, talks, and classes. The master plan is divided into 4 main projects: the renovation of the building's interior, a geriatric playground, a community engagement kiosk for baby boomers, outdoor preservation and landscaping. The historic Concord Church that we see is still standing strong in its purpose, welcoming newcomers and sharing our history with them so that they too can be part of its legacy as we move towards a brighter future.